Hello everyone, my name's Ramesh Arasratnam, and today I was going to give you an overview of the impact of COVID-19, but particularly in relation to the gut. So you will see here in this slide a series of studies tabulating the proportion of patients with both upper and lower GI symptoms. I think it's generally accepted that GI symptoms seem to affect up to 10% of patients with COVID-19. And the other question, of course, that's raised is what's the significance of this? More recent studies seem to suggest that patients who are COVID positive and with GI symptoms seems to exhibit a more severe disease course, particularly developing liver transaminitis and even respiratory complications. So how does this virus actually get into the system? Well, the prevailing theory at present seems to be through these specific receptors called angiotensin converting enzyme subtype 2. Now, this is ubiquitously expressed in all or most of the solid organs, but if you see here in the graph, particularly in caption B, that the colon has the highest abundance of this receptor, with the brain naturally having one of the lowest abundance. Thus, you can see how it could potentially exhibit significant GI effects. Now, the virus enters the host cell and it requires specifically pyrimidine to replicate. It's an RNA-based virus, and depending on the tissue, target tissue, it will exert its injury specifically in that organ by stimulating various cytokines in the process. Now, there was also a lot of interest in suggesting that perhaps patients on angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors or those on angiotensin receptor blockers perhaps had a worse outcome. But this has been dismissed in more recent studies suggesting that there's no difference in terms of outcome for patients with COVID-19 who were on these specific drugs. Now, as you know, this COVID-19 is an RNA virus, but another interesting fact, of course, is that it has been demonstrated to be present or at least detectable in stool, the significance of which remains unknown. There have been short case series seems to suggest really that even though you can have viral clearance in the upper respiratory tract, one can still shed the virus in the feces, therefore raising the possibility of ongoing fecal-oral transmission. The other aspect also to consider is the concept of fecal aerosols, very much like what we experience in endoscopy for upper GI procedures. So the British Society of Gastroenterology has outlined specific measures, particularly protective measures, both for staff and and patients when undertaking such procedures. An upper GI endoscopy is recognized as an aerosol generating procedure and hence appropriate and enhanced personal protection equipment is mandatory. However, there is still some question mark with regards to lower GI procedures, particularly in the case where there's possibility of fecal-oral transmission, but more so of fecal aerosol production. And this is reflective of further work that needs to be undertaken. The other interesting point, of course, is what sort of available therapies are there at present. And this is an ongoing and rapidly moving field with studies being published and also other studies ongoing. As you can see here from the list of various drugs that have been tried, and also ongoing ones using mainly repurposed drugs, but even others, for example, the ionic study, which is using novel compounds. So really, what do we know and what needs to be done in terms of COVID-19 and gut implications? We need to really determine for sure this question of fecal-oral spread, and reinfection as a consequence, particularly its impact on undertaking lower GI procedures. It also has an impact moving forward in gastroenterology, whereby there are still lots of diagnostic and even research-based tests using breath and stool, where there remains an inherent risk of transmission. So until these questions are answered, it remains for us to work on these specific areas. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you all the best in your clinical and research endeavors. Thank you.